I asked my son, "Why are you taking a taxi? Did the truck I gave you for your birthday break down?" My daughter-in-law stepped in and said with contempt, "That car belongs to my mother now. You do not need it anymore." Then I did something no one expected. I never thought the day would come when my own blood would look at me as if I were a burden. But that Sunday, standing in front of my house in the suburbs, with the sun setting over the hydrangeas I planted 20 years ago, I understood that my son was no longer mine. My name is Emily. I am 67 years old. My hands are worn from working so hard, and I have a heart that I thought was unbreakable. Until that Sunday in March, like every week, I had prepared lunch early: pot roast, mashed potatoes, green beans, and fresh dinner rolls. The aroma filled the whole house. I set the table with the embroidered tablecloth my mother gave me when I got married, the one with little flowers in the corners. Michael always arrived at 2 o'clock sharp, but that day, when I heard the knock on the door, something felt different. I opened it with my usual smile, wiping my hands on my apron. There was my son, my only son, standing on the step with his hands in his pockets and looking away. Behind him was Ashley, my daughter-in-law, with those dark sunglasses she never took off and a smile that always made me feel small. "Son, why are you taking a taxi?" I asked, leaning out to the street. "Did the truck I gave you for your birthday break down?" That truck, a brand new cherry red Ford F-150, shining, with beige leather seats, $55,000 that I took out of my life savings, every dollar earned with double shifts at the hospital where I worked as an administrator for 32 years, every dollar saved thinking about my son's future. Michael opened his mouth, but before he could answer, Ashley stepped forward. She took off her glasses and looked at me with those eyes that seemed to pierce through me. "That truck is my mother's now. Emily, she actually needs it for her business. You do not drive that much anymore. Why does she want it?" The world stopped. It was not the words, it was the tone. Cold, casual, like someone commenting on the weather. I looked at Michael expecting him to say something, anything, to defend me, to tell her she was wrong. But he just looked at the floor, like a scolded child, with his hands buried in the pockets of his jeans. "Michael," I whispered. My voice sounded weaker than I would have liked. He looked up for just a second. "Mom, it is just that Brenda really needs it to transport merchandise for her store. We can use Uber or taxis. It is more practical." Practical. That word echoed in my head. Ashley walked into my house as if it were hers, walking past me without waiting for an invitation. The scent of her expensive perfume invaded the space where I had been cooking all morning. "Oh, mother-in-law, do not make that face. It is not a big deal. It is just a car." She threw herself onto the living room armchair, the one David, my late husband, bought when Michael was just a baby. "Besides, you are old enough to stay quietly at home, right? Why do you need to be driving around out there?" Michael finally came in, closed the door behind him, and sat down without looking me in the eye. I stood in the middle of my own living room with my apron still on, feeling something inside me crack. It was not just the truck. It was the way they had taken away my right to have an opinion about something that was mine. It was the way my son had allowed his wife to speak for him. It was the beginning of something I did not yet fully understand, but my instinct already perceived as dangerous. "Mom, is the food ready?" Michael asked, trying to change the subject, as if he had not just broken my heart. I nodded in silence and walked to the kitchen. My legs were trembling. While I served the plates, the tears threatened to come out, but I swallowed them. I was not going to cry. Not yet, because something inside me, something small but persistent, told me that this was just beginning, and that feeling, as I would discover later, was absolutely right. But in that moment, with my hands on the hot pot and the sound of Ashley's laughter coming from the living room, I could only ask myself, At what moment did I lose my son? If this story is touching your heart, subscribe to the Elderly Stories channel to keep accompanying me in these life tales, because what comes next, no one expected that night after they left. I sat in the kitchen with a cup of coffee that had already gone cold. The house was silent, that heavy silence that only those who live alone know, but it had not always been like this. I need you to understand how we got here. How? Because none of this happened overnight. It was a slow poison, so subtle, that when I wanted to realize it, it had already infected everything. Michael was born when I was 32. It was a difficult pregnancy, one of those that mark your body and soul. But when I held him in my arms, with his little eyes closed and that newborn baby smell, I knew I would give my whole life for him, and that is what I did. David, my husband, was a mechanic. He had a small shop here in town. He worked from sunrise to sunset, with hands always black with grease, but with a smile that lit up the whole house. We loved each other in that simple and deep way that almost does not exist anymore, without big words, but with actions that said everything. Michael was barely 12 years old when his father died. It was a heart attack, sudden. David was under a car, changing the oil, when his heart simply stopped. By the time they found him, it was too late. They notified me by phone from the hospital. I remember dropping the receiver and the noise echoing through the empty house. That night, I hugged Michael and promised him that he would lack nothing, that I would take care of everything, that his father would have wanted him to study, to be someone in life, not to have to break his back like him, and I kept my promise. I sold the gold ring my grandmother had left me, an antique piece of jewelry with a small ruby in the center. It was the only thing of value I had left from her. With that money, I paid for Michael's first years of private high school. I worked double shifts at the hospital, sometimes up to 16 hours in a row. I came home with swollen feet, but I always found the strength to make him dinner, help him with homework, ask him how his day had been. Michael was a good boy, studious, quiet, respectful. He never gave me trouble. He entered the university to study systems engineering. I was so proud I felt my chest was going to explode. And then he met Ashley. It was in the second semester. He arrived one day with that shy smile he had when he liked a girl. Mom. I want to introduce you to someone, he said. Ashley came to my house on a Saturday afternoon. She was dressed elegantly, too elegantly for a simple family meal. Black dress pants, fitted white blouse, high heels. Her sleek and shiny hair fell perfectly over her shoulders. She was pretty, I could not deny it, but there was something in her look that did not quite convince me. Nice to meet you, Emily, she told me with a perfect smile, one of those practiced in front of the mirror. I made lasagna that day. It had taken me 2 days to make the sauce from scratch. Ashley barely tried a bite. It is just that I have a very delicate stomach. You understand? I did not understand, but I smiled and nodded. During the following months, I began to notice small changes in Michael. He stopped coming on Sundays. When I asked him why, he always had an excuse: university projects, outings with Ashley, tiredness. One day I heard him talking on the phone with her. I was in the kitchen and he was in the living room. But the walls of this house are thin. No, babe, I know. It is just that my mom is very intense sometimes. She wants to control everything I do. Yes, you are right. I need to set boundaries. I froze with the knife in my hand, in the middle of chopping onions. Intense? Controlling? Me, who had done nothing but love and care for him all my life. But I said nothing. I thought they were young couple things, that it would pass. How wrong I was. Ashley started inventing plans during the times Michael usually spent with me. If I suggested going to the movies on a Friday, she had already bought tickets for the theater. If I invited him to breakfast, she had organized a surprise trip to the lake. And Michael always chose Ashley. I met her parents at the engagement dinner, Brenda and Robert. She, a woman my age, but dressed as if she were 30, with dyed blonde hair and nails always perfect. He, a quiet man who barely spoke, as if he were used to his wife making all the decisions. Brenda looked at my house with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "How cozy," she said, touching the back of the armchair with her fingertips. Cozy. That word people use when they do not want to say old or modest. During dinner. Ashley talked about her plans. She wanted a big wedding in an elegant garden with more than 200 guests. I had saved $5,000 to help with expenses. I gave them to Michael in a manila envelope, with tears in my eyes. "It is all I have, son, but it is yours." Ashley took the envelope, opened it, counted the bills in front of everyone, and sighed. "Well, it is a start. My mom is going to put in the rest." "Right. Mom?" Brenda nodded smugly. "Of course. Daughter. Whatever my princess needs." That night, when everyone left, I cried in my room, hugging David's photograph. If he had been alive, none of this would be happening, but the worst was yet to come. Because, after the wedding, visits became scarcer, family Sundays disappeared, and every time I called. Ashley answered Michael's phone. "Oh, Emily, Michael is very busy. Better call him later." Later never came. And so, without realizing it, I was losing my son, not in a single day, but in 1,000 small decisions, in 1,000 whispered conversations, in 1,000 fake smiles from Ashley that hid her true plan. A plan I did not yet know, but that would soon be revealed in the most painful way possible. 2 weeks after the truck incident, Ashley began appearing at my house more frequently, but she did not come to visit me. She came to inspect. She arrived without warning, always mid-morning, when she knew I would be alone. She rang the doorbell with that insistence that does not admit you pretending not to be home, and I, like a fool, always opened. Oh, mother-in-law. I was passing by and said, "Let me say hi to Emily." She entered without waiting for an answer, with those heels that resonated on the tile floor like little hammers. "Did you make coffee? I would love one." I made her coffee. I always did. She sat at the kitchen table, crossed her legs, and began with her suggestions, because they were never direct orders. Ashley was too smart for that. They were casual comments wrapped in fake concern. "Emily, do not you think this kitchen is already very outdated?" She ran her finger over the vintage oak countertop David and I had installed when we got married. "Look at the finish. It is all worn out. A modern kitchen would look beautiful. I know someone who does remodeling. It is not that expensive." I looked at my kitchen, the warm wood and the yellow walls. Yes, some cabinets had scratches. Yes, the stove was not new, but that kitchen held 35 years of meals prepared with love, of breakfasts with my husband, of afternoons teaching Michael to bake cookies. "I do not need to remodel," I replied firmly. Ashley smiled. That smile I was already learning to recognize, the one she used when she did not get what she wanted, but was not giving up yet. "Well, it is your house." She took a sip of coffee and wrinkled her nose. "Although thinking about it, Michael and I could move here with you. The apartment where we live is very small, and you have that guest room that no one uses." The guest room. The one that had been Michael's throughout his childhood, where I still kept some of his old toys, his elementary school books, his drawings. I had turned it into a simple but cozy space, with a twin bed, a desk, and a bookshelf. I kept it clean and ready in case Michael ever decided to stay. "That room has his things," I said. "Exactly. Pure old things that only gather dust." She got up and walked to the living room, as if she already lived there. In fact, there are many old things in this house that are useless. It could be a garage sale, right? Get some extra cash. My heart began to beat faster. I followed her gaze. She was looking at the wall clock hanging next to the dining room, a hand-carved wooden clock. David had given it to me on our 10th anniversary. He had worked extra shifts for 2 months to buy it. That clock, for example, it is very ugly. Emily, it does not even tell time well anymore. It tells perfect time. I replied with a tense voice. And it is not for sale. Ashley raised her hands in a gesture of surrender, but her eyes shone with something that disturbed me. It was not anger. It was calculation. Oh, mother-in-law, do not get like that. It was just a suggestion. It is just that sometimes one gets attached to things that have already fulfilled their cycle. You know? It is like clinging to the past instead of looking at the future. I bit my tongue. I wanted to scream at her that that clock was not a thing, that every object in my house had a story, a piece of my life, of my marriage, of my son. But something stopped me, a survival instinct that told me not to show how much her words affected me. "Does Michael know you are here?" I asked, changing the subject. "Of course. He agrees with everything we talked about." She took her bag, an expensive leather model I could never afford. In fact, last night we were talking about his future, Emily, and about yours too. That sentence froze me. My future. What did they have to plan about my future? But before I could ask, Ashley was already at the door. "See you soon, mother-in-law." And think about it, okay? About the remodeling and about the room. Michael and I really need more space. She left, leaving a trail of expensive perfume and a silence that weighed like stone. That afternoon, I could do nothing. I sat in the living room chair, looking at the wooden clock, and a dark sensation began to grow in my chest. It was not just sadness, it was fear. The next day, Ashley returned. This time, she came with Michael, Mom. We came to measure the room, my son announced. Avoiding my gaze, he had a tape measure in his hand. "Measure for what?" "To see if a queen bed fits," Ashley replied naturally, as if everything had already been decided. "It is just that we really need to move." "Emily, the apartment where we are is super expensive and very small. Here you have so much space, it would be the most logical thing." Right? Logical. For her, everything was logical. Taking my truck, invading my house, erasing the memories of my life. I had not thought about having permanent company, I said carefully. Michael finally looked at me. There was something in his eyes, guilt, discomfort. I do not know, but it was just a second. Ashley took him by the arm and smiled. "Oh, mother-in-law, but we would be a family. You would not be so alone anymore. We would take care of you." "Right." "Honey?" Michael nodded like a robot, and in that moment, standing in the hallway of my own house, watching my daughter-in-law open the door to my son's room without asking for permission, I understood something terrible. I no longer felt at home. I felt like a guest who was in the way. Ashley entered the room, measured the walls with her eyes, the furniture, the drawers where I kept Michael's old notebooks. All this would have to go, obviously. We could donate it or throw it away. Why keep so many things from the past, right? Throw away, donate, erase. I did not answer. I just watched them measure, plan, decide on my space as if I no longer existed. When they left, I locked the door to the room. It was a useless gesture. I knew, but I needed to feel that I still had control over something. That night, I hugged David's pillow, the one I still kept in my closet, and I cried until I fell asleep. But the crying would not last long, because what came next would force me to dry my tears and open my eyes for real. Something was about to break, and when that happened, nothing would ever be the same again. A month passed since the room measurements. Ashley did not mention the move again, but I knew she had not forgotten. She forgot nothing. She just waited for the right moment. That moment came on a Tuesday afternoon. Michael appeared at my door without warning. He came alone. And that was already strange. He had deep circles under his eyes. His shirt was wrinkled, and he had that look of defeat that any mother recognizes immediately. "Mom, can I come in?" Of course he could. He was my son. He always could. He sat at the kitchen table, exactly where he used to sit as a child, and told me about his school problems. But he was no longer a child. He was a 35-year-old man with a manipulative wife, and as I would discover in a few minutes, with problems much bigger than a math assignment. I poured him a glass of iced tea. His hands shook when he took it. "Mom, I need to ask you for something." My stomach tied in a knot. I knew that tone. It was the same one he used when he asked me for money for the wedding, and for the down payment on the apartment, and for the new furniture Ashley had chosen. What is wrong? "Son?" Michael took a deep breath. He did not look me in the eye. "The business is bad. Very bad. The business." That software development company he had opened 2 years ago with 2 other partners, a company I had helped finance with $20,000 from my hospital settlement, all the money they had given me after 32 years of service. I had given it to him without hesitation because it was my son's dream. "How bad?" I asked, although part of me already knew the answer. "We lost a big client, one that owed us almost $12,000. He declared bankruptcy and is not going to pay us, and we had already used that money to pay suppliers for the next project." His voice broke. "Mom, if I do not get $10,000 in the next 15 days, we are going to have to close. And besides, I have personal debts, the apartment rent, credit card, $10,000. I felt the air escape my lungs. That amount represented almost all my remaining savings, the cushion I had been building again, dollar by dollar, since my retirement. I did administrative consulting work for small clinics. I did not earn much, but it was enough to survive and save a little. "Michael, I do not have it. Mom, please." Now he looked at me and his eyes were red. "It is just a loan. I will sign whatever. I will pay you back in 3 months. I swear. With interest if you want. But if I do not get that money, I am going to lose everything. Everything we have built. Everything you helped me build." There it was. Guilt. The oldest weapon in the world. My son was crying in front of me. My son, whom I carried in my arms, whom I cared for when he had a fever, whom I supported in every decision of his life. How could I say no? "Let me check my account," I said finally. The relief on his face was instant. He got up and hugged me, tight, like he had not done since he was a teenager. "Thanks. Mom, thank you. You do not know what this means to me. I promise I will return it. Everything." The next day, I went to the bank. I took out $10,000 in a cashier's check. Michael came to my house with a simple document, a promissory note he had written himself, with his signature at the end and the payment date, 3 months later. But he did not come alone. Ashley was with him, leaning on the kitchen door, with her arms crossed and that smile I already knew so well. "Thanks, Emily," she said with a sweet voice, but her eyes were cold as ice. "I knew we could count on you, not like my family, who never supports us in anything. My mom told me, solve it yourself. I do not have to be getting you out of your problems. But you are a true mother." There was poison in that compliment. I felt it. But Michael seemed relieved, almost happy, and I did not want to ruin the moment. I gave them the check. Ashley took it before Michael could extend his hand. She checked it carefully, as if she suspected it was fake. "Perfect," she said, putting it in her bag. "Well, we have to go. We have to deposit it before the bank closes." And they left, without staying for coffee, without talking for a while, without even a genuine goodbye hug. I stood in the living room, watching through the window as they got into a new car I did not recognize, a silver sedan, late model. 3 months passed. Not only did they not pay me, but Michael stopped visiting me completely. When they were 4 months overdue, I gathered the courage to call him. Ashley answered. "Hello, is Michael there?" "He is busy." "Emily, what do you need?" I swallowed hard. I hated having to say it. But I had no money left even for electricity. It is just that. The loan deadline has passed. I need to know when. "Oh, Emily, seriously." Her tone changed completely, from sweet to sharp in a second. "Seriously? You are going to charge your own son after everything he has done for you? After visiting you all these years, putting up with your complaints and your dramas?" I was speechless with shock. "Do you know what is wrong with you, Emily? That you are cheap, selfish? My mom would never charge me anything, never. Because that is true mother's love. But you only think about your money." "Ashley, I only. Michael will pay you when he can, when we have it, but do not pressure him. He has enough stress already without his own mother bothering him," and she hung up. I stood with the phone in my hand, trembling with rage and helplessness. Tears fell uncontrollably, not for the money, for the humiliation, for the injustice, for seeing my son turned into a puppet. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept all the important documents. The promissory note was there, with Michael's signature, clear handwriting, specific date. It was valid, legally. I could sue him, but he was my son, my only son. How is a mother supposed to sue her own son? I sat on the floor of my room, surrounded by papers, and for the first time in a long time, I felt something stronger than sadness. I felt rage, pure and burning rage. And that rage, although I did not know it yet, would be the fuel that would save me. Because if they thought they were going to break me, if they thought they could trample me until I became invisible, they were about to discover that they had made the biggest mistake of their lives. I thought I had already hit bottom, that there could not be a greater humiliation than being treated like an ATM by my own blood. But the universe, or maybe the wickedness of certain people, always finds a way to surprise you. It was a Saturday in June. It was unbearable heat. One of those Midwestern summer days that make you sweat just by breathing. I was in the kitchen making lemonade when my phone rang. It was Michael. My heart skipped a beat. It had been almost 2 weeks since we last spoke, after that disastrous call with Ashley. "Mom, how are you?" His voice sounded strange, forcedly casual. "Good. Son, and you? Look, I am calling because Ashley wants to have a dinner at your house. It is just that I received a promotion at the company, and she wants to celebrate it with the family. At my house? Without asking me first if I agreed. Michael, I do not. It is this Saturday. Mom, tonight. Like at 8. You do not have to prepare much. Just the basics. Ashley already invited her parents and her brothers. This Saturday? Today?" I looked at the clock. It was 2 p.m. "Yes, today. It is just that we forgot to tell you before. But you cook fast, right? You always have." And he hung up. Just like that, without giving me a chance to respond. I stood looking at the phone with a mixture of disbelief and resignation. Part of me wanted to call him back and tell him no, that it was my house, and he could not use it as if it were a party hall. But another part, that part of a mother who still held on to hope, thought, maybe this is a sign. Maybe he wants to get close again. Maybe things can get better. How foolish I was. I ran to the market. I spent $150 I did not have on ingredients to make homemade lasagna, Michael's favorite dish. I bought ground beef, cheese, tomato sauce, spices, fresh bread, salad. I also bought a ham just in case the lasagna was not enough, and fruits to make fresh juice. I arrived home carrying the bags, with sweat running down my back, and started cooking like I had not done in months. I stood in that kitchen for 5 hours, making sauce, boiling pasta, stirring pots. My feet hurt, my back protested, but I kept going because it was for my son, because it was a celebration, because maybe, just maybe, this would bring us closer again. By 7:30, I had everything ready. I set my best tablecloth, the white linen one embroidered with gold thread that I only used on special occasions. I took out the good china, the porcelain with blue flowers that belonged to my mother. I placed fresh flowers in the center of the table. The house smelled delicious. Everything was perfect. They arrived at 8:15, Michael and Ashley, followed by Brenda and Robert, and Ashley's two siblings, Jessica and Mark, both with their partners. 9 people in total. Ashley entered my house as if she owned it. Oh, Emily. It smells so good. She did not even greet me with a kiss. She just walked straight to the dining room, inspecting everything with that critical look I already knew. Did you put the old tablecloth? Well, it does not matter. The important thing is the food. Brenda arrived behind, with a wine-colored dress that probably cost more than 3 months of my utility bills. She looked me up and down. I was wearing a simple cotton blouse and jeans. I had been cooking all day. I did not have time to fix myself up. Emily, dear, she said with that honeyed voice she used when she wanted to be condescending. You look tired. Did you not sleep well? I was cooking, I replied, trying to smile. Ah, of course. She sat at the head of the table, the place where my late husband always sat. No one else had sat there in 3 years, but she did it without asking. Well, we hope it is good. Brenda has a delicate stomach. Right. Daughter? I started serving the plates, freshly made lasagna, salad, garlic bread. The steam rose with that aroma that filled the whole house. I placed the biggest plate in front of Michael. He looked at me for a second, murmured, Thanks, Mom, and lowered his eyes. They started eating. I remained standing, like a waitress in my own house, waiting to see if they needed anything else. More bread, more water, more napkins. No one said it was delicious. No one thanked me. And then, in the middle of dinner, with her mouth full of my food, Brenda dropped the bomb. Oh, Emily, it is good that you are still useful for something. She laughed, wiping her mouth with the cloth napkin. At your age, I thought you could not even stand in the kitchen anymore. But look, you still pull it off. The whole table laughed. Ashley, her siblings. Even Robert let out an awkward giggle. I froze with the pitcher of water in my hand. Am I still useful for something? Michael said nothing. He did not even look up from his plate. Ashley, with that cruel smile she no longer bothered to disguise, added, It is just that my mother-in-law does not have much to do. Right. Emily, we do work. We have responsibilities, projects, but you are already retired. This is like your hobby. No, my hobby. Cooking for 5 hours, spending money I do not have, opening the doors of my house. Everything was just a hobby to entertain the poor old woman who has nothing better to do. I also worked all my life, I said with a trembling voice. 32 years in the hospital, yes. But that is over, right? Jessica, Ashley's younger sister, spoke with her mouth full. That is in the past. Now your thing is to rest and help us who are in the struggle. Help them. As if I had done nothing else in the last 3 years. I felt tears starting to form, but I was not going to give them the pleasure of seeing me cry. I excused myself, mumbling something about bringing more bread, and went into the kitchen. I closed the door and leaned against the wall, covering my mouth so they would not hear me sob. My hands were shaking. My chest hurt as if someone had hit me. From the kitchen, I could hear them laughing, talking, celebrating, as if I did not exist, as if I were part of the furniture. I do not know how long I was there, but when I managed to control myself and return to the dining room with the bread, they were already finishing eating. Well, we have to go, Brenda announced, wiping her hands. Thanks for dinner, Emily. It was acceptable. Acceptable. They left one by one. Ashley took the leftover lasagna in a container without asking. Michael gave me a quick hug, mechanical, without looking me in the eye. "Thanks for dinner." "Mom, it was good." And he left. I was left alone in the middle of the dining room, surrounded by dirty plates, empty glasses, crumpled napkins. The house that had smelled of a party now smelled of betrayal. I cleaned everything in silence. I washed every plate. I put away every glass. And when I finished, when there was nothing left to clean, I sat on the floor of my room and cried until I had no tears left. But something had changed that night. Among the tears, among the pain and humiliation, something inside me hardened, like metal in fire. It was no longer just sadness, it was determination. Because if Ashley and her family thought I was just an old woman useful for cooking and serving, if my own son had allowed them to treat me like a servant in my own house, then there was nothing left to lose. And when you have nothing to lose, you become dangerous. That night I made a decision. I did not know how or when, but I was going to get my dignity back, even if it cost me losing my son in the process. After that humiliating dinner, something broke inside me, not in the way you think someone breaks, with dramatic crying or screams of despair. No, it was something quieter, deeper, like when a crack appears in the foundation of a house and no one notices until it is too late. I stopped waiting for Michael's calls. I stopped inventing excuses to justify his silence. And I stopped, above all, being the mother who begs for crumbs of her son's love. 3 weeks after the dinner, a Wednesday afternoon, Ashley arrived at my house with 2 large suitcases. Emily. "We need to stay here for a few days. They are fumigating our building and we cannot be there." She did not ask. She informed. Michael came behind with more bags. He did not even look at me when he went straight to what had been his childhood room. "It will only be 3 or 4 days." Ashley lied. "Do not worry. We will not be in the way." They settled in as if it were a hotel. Ashley took control of the main bathroom, filling it with her expensive creams and perfumes. Michael took over the closet where I kept the boxes with David's things. He took them out and piled them in the hallway. Without saying a word, "Mom, we need space," was all he said when I complained. I put the boxes in my own room, stacked in a corner, and said nothing more. But every time I saw them, something inside me tensed a little more. The 3 or 4 days turned into 2 weeks. And in those 2 weeks, I learned things I would have preferred not to know. Ashley left her laptop open on the dining room table while I cleaned. She talked on the phone with her mother, not caring that I was nearby, as if I were invisible, as if I were a piece of furniture without ears or feelings. One afternoon, while she was in the shower and Michael had gone out to buy something, I saw her phone on the kitchen table. The screen lit up with a message from Brenda. "Did you convince the old hag yet?" My heart raced. I looked toward the hallway. The water in the shower was still running. I took the phone with trembling hands. I should not do it. I knew. But something stronger than my education, than my principles, pushed me to slide my finger across the screen. Ashley was one of those people so confident in her power that she did not even use a password. I opened the conversation with her mother, and what I read froze my blood. Not yet, Mom, but almost. The old hag is closer than I thought. You have to hurry, daughter. That house is worth at least $400,000. If you get her to put it in your name, we can sell it and split the money. I know. Michael is already working on her. He is putting ideas in her head that she is very alone, that the house is too big, that it would be better for her to move to a smaller place. I already got her information on some nursing homes. Nursing homes. The word hit me like a punch in the stomach. I kept reading with hands increasingly trembling. And the will? We are slower there. But I found some draft deeds in the office of a lawyer friend of Robert. I just need her to sign some water or tax papers without reading well. You know how old people are. They trust. You are a genius. Daughter. Michael was lucky to find you. Michael does what I tell him. Mom. He always has. It is easier than I thought. The shower water turned off. I panicked. I left the phone exactly as it was and left the kitchen with my heart racing. I went into my room and closed the door. My legs were shaking so much I had to sit on the bed. I breathed with difficulty, as if I lacked air. Everything made sense now. The sudden visits, the remodeling suggestions, the interest in the guest room, the conversations about my future. It was not concern. It was a plan to steal my house, to lock me in a nursing home, to erase me from my own son's life. And Michael knew. He was working on me, according to Ashley's words. The pain I felt in that moment has no name. It was not just betrayal. It was the death of something I believed eternal, the unconditional love of a mother for her son, and the certainty that that love is returned. But between the pain, between the silent tears running down my cheeks, something else woke up, something primitive, survival instinct. I was not going to let myself be defeated. That night, when both were sleeping, I left my room with silent steps. I had made a decision. If they played dirty, I would too. But I would be smarter. I entered the guest room where they were staying. The moonlight entered through the window, barely enough to see. The wooden floor creaked under my bare feet. I stopped, holding my breath, but neither of them moved. I searched in silence, in Ashley's suitcase, among her things, and then, hidden under the mattress, I found a thin manila plastic folder. I took it out carefully and returned to my room. I locked the door and turned on the night lamp. My hands shook as I opened the folder. There were documents, several. Some were draft deeds for the sale of my house. My name appeared as the seller. The buyer's name was still blank. There were handwritten notes in Ashley's handwriting in the margins. Convince her to sign without reading. Tell her it is the overdue water bill. We need 2 witnesses. Find corrupt notary. Michael has to pressure her more about loneliness. There were also printouts of WhatsApp conversations between Ashley and her mother. Conversations where they planned every step, where they laughed at me, where they called me the old nuisance. One conversation said, "When we have the house, we send her to the San Rafael nursing home. It is cheap and kind of neglected, but she has no right to complain. We have put up with enough already," another said. Michael is starting to doubt. Yesterday he told me that maybe we were being too hard on his mom. I had to remind him that his mom has enough saved money and that she is just being selfish by not sharing it with us. I convinced him. I read every word, every message, every note, and with every line, the pain transformed into something different, into fury, but not a blind and destructive fury. It was a cold fury, calculating, the fury of a woman who has been pushed to the limit and finally decides to fight back. I took my phone and photographed every document, every page, every conversation. I saved the photos in 3 different places. My phone, a USB drive I hid inside a coffee can in the kitchen, and I uploaded it to an email account I created that same night. I put the folder back exactly where I found it, under the mattress, with the same angle, the same position. When I returned to my room, I was no longer shaking. I was no longer crying. I was planning. I sat on my bed, surrounded by the boxes with David's things. And for the first time in months, I felt he was with me. I could almost hear his voice. "Emily, you are stronger than you think. You always have been." The next day, I acted as if nothing had happened. I made breakfast for Ashley and Michael. I smiled, served coffee, asked how they had slept. Ashley looked at me with that smug smile I knew so well. "Very well, mother-in-law. This house is so comfortable. I think we are going to have to stay longer, right?" "Honey?" Michael nodded without looking at me. "Of course," I replied with a smile that did not reach my eyes. Stay as long as you need." Ashley seemed surprised by my answer. She expected resistance, but I said nothing more, because now I had something she did not know I had: information, evidence, and a plan that was beginning to form in my mind. If they wanted to play, we would play. But this time, I would set the rules, and when they fell, when they finally understood their mistake, it would be too late. The predator had awakened, and predators do not forgive. There is a strange power in silence, a power you only discover when you have been pushed so close to the edge that you have nothing left to lose. And I had reached that point. During the following days, I became the Emily they wanted to see: docile, helpful, a little oblivious, the dumb old woman who does not notice anything, but inside, every neuron in my brain was working. Ashley and Michael were still living in my house. 3 weeks had passed. The fumigation excuse had been forgotten long ago. Now they were simply there just because they could. But I no longer complained. On the contrary. "Would you like more coffee?" I asked every morning with a smile. "Can I make you something to eat?" I offered in the afternoons. Ashley was bewildered. I could see it in her eyes. She expected resistance, drama, tears. But I only gave her kindness. That made her uncomfortable, even if she did not admit it. The Friday of that week, while they were napping. I left the house with a clear purpose. I took a taxi to downtown, to the office of attorney Roger Smith. Roger had been a friend of David's since high school. They went to school together, played football on the same team, were witnesses at each other's weddings. After David died, Roger visited me several times to offer help with any legal procedures. I always thanked him, but I never needed anything, until now. His office was in an old building downtown, one of those with original mosaic floors and high ceilings. I climbed the stairs slowly, rehearsing in my mind what I was going to say. "Emily." He received me with a sincere hug. What a pleasant surprise. Come in. Roger was almost 70. White hair, thick glasses, and a warm smile. He offered me coffee. I sat in front of his desk full of files and photographs of his family. "What brings you here?" I took out my phone and showed him the photos of the documents, all of them, one by one. I said nothing while he reviewed them. His expression changed progressively from curiosity to concern and, finally, to indignation. "Emily, this is..." He took off his glasses and rubbed his eyes. "This is attempted fraud, dispossession, elder financial abuse. Did your daughter-in-law do this?" I nodded. My voice came out firmer than I expected. "And my son knows. He is involved." Roger let out a long sigh. He reviewed the photographs again, now with a more technical eye. These drafts have no legal validity yet, but they show clear intent to commit a crime. The conversations are evidence. If they had managed to get you to sign something... He shook his head. "Where are the originals?" "Hidden in my house. They do not know I found them." "Good, very good." He leaned back in his chair, thoughtful. "Emily, I am going to be honest with you. This is serious. We could file criminal charges right now, but if we do that, your son is going to get involved in a legal process that could end with him in jail." My heart ached. Despite everything, he was still my son. "I do not want to destroy him," I admitted with a broken voice. "I just want to protect myself. I want them to understand that they cannot do this to me. I want to recover my dignity." Roger nodded slowly. He remained silent for a moment, drumming his fingers on the desk. Then he leaned forward. "Then we need to be strategic. First, we are going to protect your assets legally. Second, we are going to gather more evidence. And third, when we have everything ready, we are going to confront them in a way they cannot escape. But you are going to have to be patient and strong. Can you do that?" "I can," I replied without hesitation. He gave me precise instructions. First, We were going to change my will. He would draft it immediately. Second, I needed to record every conversation I could with Ashley and Michael. My phone had a voice recorder. I had to use it. And if they discover I am recording them? I asked. Do not tell them you are doing it. Just leave it recording in your pocket when they talk. It is legal because it is your house, and they are conversations in which you participate. Everything you say or they say to you can be used as evidence. He also suggested something I had not considered. Install a security camera, but do not make it look obvious, he said. There are small cameras, the size of a clock or a smoke detector. They connect to your phone via Wi-Fi. That way you can record video of everything that happens in your living room, their conversations, their attitudes, everything. I left his office with a clear plan and for the first time in months, with real hope. Ironic. No. That same afternoon, I went to an electronics store at the mall. The lady who attended me was very kind. I told her I wanted a security camera because there had been robberies in the neighborhood. She showed me several options. I chose one that looked like a modern wall clock, black with silver numbers. It had a built-in camera, recorded in high definition, connected to my cell phone, and the best part, it had a motion sensor and could record for up to 30 days. It is perfect, I said. It cost $250. I did not care. It was an investment in my future. When I got home, Ashley and Michael were not there. They had gone out to who knows where. I took the opportunity to install the clock on the living room wall, right in front of the dining room and angled towards the main sofa. From there, almost the entire common area could be seen. I downloaded the application on my phone. It worked perfectly. I could see in real time what the camera was recording. I could review previous recordings. Everything was saved in a cloud. My neighbor, Betty, had seen me enter with packages. What do you have there? Emily? She asked curiously from her window. Betty was 73, lived alone like me, and was one of those people who notice everything that happens on the block. She had noticed that Michael and Ashley were staying at my house. One afternoon, she had asked me if everything was okay. I had told her yes, but she did not believe me. Can I tell you something in confidence? I asked her. Sure. Honey, come in. I sat in her kitchen and told her everything, not all the details, but enough. The fake documents, the conversations, the plan to take my house. Betty listened to me with eyes increasingly wide, putting her hand to her chest. Oh, Emily, that girl is the devil in person. And does your son know? Yes, I said with a broken voice. He knows. Betty shook her head, indignant. Then she took my hands. What are you going to do? I am gathering evidence. When I have enough, I am going to confront them. But I need witnesses. People who can confirm what happened. Could you help me? Of course. Count on me for whatever. She also taught me something very useful. How to use the voice recorder on my phone discreetly. It was simpler than I thought. I just had to open the application, hit record, and put the phone in my apron pocket. The microphone was sensitive enough to pick up clear conversations. We practiced. Betty said things, and I checked if they had recorded well. It worked perfectly. You are smarter than that girl thinks, Betty told me with a mischievous smile. Give her what she deserves. I returned home feeling different. I was no longer the defenseless victim. I was a woman with a plan. During the next week, I captured everything, every conversation where Ashley spoke badly to me, every moment Michael ignored me or avoided looking me in the eye, every derogatory comment about my age, my house, my life. One night, while I was washing dishes, I recorded them talking in the living room. They did not know the clock camera was running. How long do you think it will take her to sign? Ashley asked. I do not know. It is being harder than I thought. My mom is stubborn. Michael. You have to pressure her more. Make her feel alone. Make her feel useless. That way she will want to sign whatever just so we stay with her. I feel bad doing this to her. Oh, stop. Do not start with your guilt. Your mom lived her life. Now it is our turn. Besides, she is not going to stay on the street. We are going to put her in the nursing home. She will be fine." I heard all that while scrubbing a pot with hot water burning my hands. Tears fell, but I made no noise. Every word was recorded, in video, in audio, with date and time. And when I had enough, when my phone was full of evidence, when my soul was ready, I knew the moment had come. It was time to stop being prey. It was time to roar. The moment came on a Sunday in August, exactly 2 months since Ashley and Michael had temporarily moved into my house, 2 months in which I had been the actress of my own life, pretending to know nothing while gathering every piece of evidence. I already had enough, more than enough. Now I just needed the perfect stage for the final act, that Saturday morning, while making coffee. I told Michael with a casual voice, "Son, I want to have a family meeting tomorrow, here at the house. Something important I need to discuss with everyone." Michael looked up from his cell phone, surprised. "A meeting? What for?" "There are things I need to resolve about the house, about my future." I let the sentence float in the air, ambiguous and full of possibilities. I saw his eyes light up. He quickly looked at Ashley, who was in the living room pretending to watch TV but clearly listening to every word. "Sure. Mom. What time?" "At 5 in the afternoon. Invite Ashley's parents, too. This concerns everyone." Ashley got up from the armchair, trying to hide her excitement. "Oh, mother-in-law. What mystery is that? Are you going to share good news?" I smiled. A smile I practiced in front of the mirror dozens of times. "You will see tomorrow, that afternoon." While they went out to eat, I made my own calls. First, to Attorney Roger. "It is tomorrow. Can you come?" "Of course. I will bring the necessary documents." Then to my sister Rose. She lived just 20 minutes from here. I told her everything, absolutely everything. Rose cried on the phone, between rage and sadness. "Emily, why did you not tell me before? Because I needed to handle this alone. But now I need you. Can you come tomorrow? I will be there. And she is going to pay for what she did to you." I also called my friend Uncle Jack, Michael's godfather, a 75-year-old man, but with a presence that commanded respect. He had been a police officer for 30 years before retiring. "Jack, I need you to be a witness to something very important. Count on me, Emily." "What do you need?" He promised to be there. And finally, I called Betty. "Ready to watch the show?" I asked her. "Ready. I will bring popcorn," she replied with her characteristic dark humor. Sunday arrived with suffocating heat. From early on, the sky was clear with that intense blue that hurts to look at. I woke up at 6 in the morning. I had slept almost nothing, not from nerves, but from adrenaline. I bathed calmly. I put on a simple brown dress, one of those I use for important occasions. I pulled my hair into a low bun. I put on just a little makeup. I wanted to look good, but not draw attention, while looking in the mirror. I thought of David, how proud he would be of me in this moment. Here I go. My love. I whispered, touching the photograph I kept on my nightstand. At 3 in the afternoon, Roger arrived first. He came with his worn leather briefcase and a serious expression. Already, everything. We reviewed the plan one more time, every detail, every possible reaction, every prepared answer. At 4:30, Rose arrived. My younger sister, 2 years younger than me, but who looked older because of everything life had given her. She was widowed young, too. She had 3 grown children. When she saw me, she hugged me so tight I almost could not breathe. "You are going to be fine. We are going to be here." Uncle Jack arrived punctual at 4:40, wearing an impeccable white shirt and dress pants. He stood at the entrance like a soldier, with his hands crossed in front. Betty arrived through the back door discreetly. As we had planned, she would sit in the kitchen, where she could see and hear everything, but not be seen. At 5 o'clock sharp, Michael and Ashley came down from their room. They had dressed up. Michael with a shirt and dress pants. Ashley with a fitted black dress and heels, her hair perfectly combed, impeccable makeup. She came ready to celebrate her victory. 10 minutes later, Brenda and Robert arrived, she in a pale pink suit, jewelry on her neck and wrists, he with his eternal expression of discomfort. Ashley received them at the door as if she were the owner of the house. She hugged them effusively. "Mom, Daddy, come in. I think today is the day." Brenda looked at me with a triumphant smile. In her eyes was pure satisfaction. "Emily, dear, what a pleasure." Everyone sat in the living room, Ashley and Michael on the main sofa, Brenda and Robert on the love seat. I remained standing, next to the dining room table where I had placed my laptop. No one had noticed Roger, Rose and Jack sitting in the dining chairs, discreet but present. Ashley was the first to notice them. "Oh, mother-in-law. And all these people?" "They are witnesses," I replied calmly, "of what is going to happen today." Ashley's smile faltered for just a second. "Witnesses of what?" I approached the laptop and opened it. The screen lit up. My hands were not shaking. My voice was not shaking. My whole being was focused on this moment. Witnesses of the truth. Michael moved uncomfortably in his seat. Brenda frowned. "Emily, what is happening here? What is happening?" "Brenda, is that for months your daughter and my son have been planning to steal my house, manipulate me into signing fake documents and lock me in a nursing home to get rid of me? The silence that followed was so heavy it could be cut with a knife." Ashley stood up suddenly. What are you talking about, Michael?" "Your mom is delirious. I am not delirious. I have proof." I turned the laptop towards them. "And now you are going to see it all." I pressed play. The first image that appeared was a photograph of the fake documents, the deeds with my name, Ashley's handwritten notes, her plans written in her own handwriting. Ashley turned pale. Brenda put her hand to her chest. "Where did you get that?" Ashley shouted. "You went through my things." "That is invasion of privacy. It is my house," I replied with a cold voice, "and you live here only because I allowed it. You have no privacy of what you hide under the mattress of my guest room." I moved to the next image, the WhatsApp conversations between Ashley and her mother, every message, every plan, every insult towards me. Brenda tried to get up. "This is a misunderstanding. Ashley was just..." "She was just what?" I interrupted her. "Just planning how to rob a useless old woman? How to lock her in a cheap and neglected nursing home? Because that is exactly what it says here, in her exact words." Robert, who never spoke, let out a groan of shame. But I was not finished. The best was coming now, and in case the images are not enough. I said while connecting the laptop to the living room TV, "I also have video." I pressed play again. On the screen appeared the recording of the clock camera. My living room, Ashley and Michael sitting exactly where they were now, but a week ago, and their voices, clear as water. "How long do you think it will take her to sign?" "I do not know. It is being harder than I thought. My mom is stubborn. Michael, you have to pressure her more, make her feel alone, make her feel useless." Michael stood up, white as a sheet. "Mom, sit down," I ordered, and to my surprise, he obeyed. The video continued, every word, every plan, every confession. Ashley was shaking with rage, but also with fear. Brenda had tears in her eyes, but not of sadness, of shame for being discovered. When the video ended, no one spoke. The silence was deafening. I crossed my arms and looked at them all, one by one. "Now," I said with a voice that admitted no reply, "you are going to listen to what I decided to do about it." And in that moment, I knew I had won. Because in their eyes, there was no longer arrogance. There was fear. I let the silence extend. I wanted them to feel the weight of their actions. I wanted every second of discomfort to nail into their consciences like thorns. Ashley was the first to try to recover. She wiped the tears that were not of sadness. but of rage, and pointed her finger at me. "This is illegal. You cannot record us without our consent. I am going to sue you." Attorney Rogers stood up. His voice was calm, but firm. "Actually, Ms. Ashley, the recording is completely legal. It was made on Emily's private property, and the conversations occurred in common areas of her home. She has every right to install security systems in her own house. What is illegal, allow me to inform you, is what you did." He took a thick folder out of his briefcase and dropped it on the table with a dry thud that made everyone jump. Attempted fraud, document forgery, conspiracy to commit dispossession, elder financial abuse. Each of these crimes carries penalties of between 5 and 15 years in prison, and I have enough evidence to proceed criminally against everyone involved. Brenda let out a sob. Robert covered his face with his hands. Michael finally spoke. His voice sounded broken. "Mom, forgive me. I did not want. Ashley told me that you had a lot of saved money and that you were just being selfish, that it was normal for parents to help children. I did not think that." "You did not think?" I interrupted him. My voice came out harder than I expected. "You did not think that planning to lock your own mother in a nursing home was bad? You did not think that stealing her house was wrong? Or did you think? But the money convinced you." Michael could not hold my gaze. Tears began to roll down his cheeks. "Michael," I said, approaching him, "I raised you alone. I gave you everything I had. I sold the few jewels I had left from my mother to pay for your school. I worked double shifts until my bones ached so you would lack nothing. I financed your career. I financed your business. I gave you a truck that cost $55,000. My voice broke. "And you repaid me by planning my exile." "Mom." "No." I raised my hand. "I am not finished yet." I returned to the table and took out more documents from a folder I had prepared. "Now you are going to hear what I decided, and it is not negotiable." I handed copies to each one. Ashley took them with trembling hands. First, the truck. That red Ford F-150 that I bought with my savings and that you gifted to Brenda without my consent. I looked directly at my son's mother-in-law. "I already filed a complaint for theft with the prosecutor's office. You have 72 hours to return it to me with the keys and original papers. If you do not do it, the criminal process continues. And believe me, Brenda, at your age, jail is not a pleasant place." Brenda opened her mouth, but no sound came out. Second, the loan. "Michael, you owe me $10,000 plus 4 months of interest. The promissory note you signed is legally valid. I already initiated a civil lawsuit. You have 30 days to pay the total plus accumulated interest, which totals $12,000. If you do not pay, your assets will be seized, starting with your apartment and your car." Michael closed his eyes. Tears kept falling. "Third, this house," I paused. "Many of you, especially you, Ashley, believed you could take it from me. Well, I have news for you. Yesterday I modified my will before a notary public. I took out the official document with stamps and signatures. I held it up for everyone to see. This house will no longer be inherited by Michael. It will be inherited in equal parts by my sister Rose and the Women with Dignity Foundation, an organization that supports older women victims of family abuse. Curiously, I helped found it myself 2 weeks ago. Ashley's expression was pure horror. "No, you cannot do that. That house belongs to Michael. He is your only son." "That house belongs to me," I said with a steel voice, "and I can do with it whatever I want." Michael had his chance to be a good son. He wasted it. Rose, my sister, spoke for the first time. Her voice trembled with emotion. "And I will ensure that this house is used to help other women who are going through the same thing you went through. Emily, so they know they are not alone, that they can defend themselves. Fourth," I continued, "the restraining order. I took out more papers. Official documents with the court seal. Ashley Mendez. Brenda Mendez and Robert Mendez are prohibited from approaching within 100 yards of my person or this property. Any attempt at contact, whether physical, telephone, or through social media, will be considered a violation of the order and will result in immediate arrest. The order is valid for 2 years, renewable. Brenda stood up, furious. This is abuse. You are a bitter old woman who cannot stand seeing her son happy. We are going to hire the best lawyer in the city, and we are going to. Going to what? Attorney Roger stood up, imposing. Are you going to sue her with what money? Ma'am? Because when you finish paying the fines, reparations, and legal costs of all these crimes, you will not even have enough to pay for a public defender, and I suggest you lower your voice and leave before I add threats to the list of charges. Robert took his wife by the arm. Brenda, let's go. You have done enough damage. It was the first time I heard him speak firmly. Brenda looked at him with surprise, but obeyed. She got up with all the dignity she could muster, but her legs were shaking. Before leaving, she turned to me. This is not going to stay like this. Yes, it is going to stay like this, I replied, because I have the law on my side, and you only have lies. They left, slamming the door. The sound echoed through the whole house. We remained Michael, Ashley, me and my witnesses. Ashley was shaking. All her mask of security had crumbled. She was no longer the arrogant woman who treated me like a servant. She was a scared girl who had just realized she had underestimated the wrong person. Michael, she said with a desperate voice, say something, do something. She is your mother. You can convince her. But Michael did not look at her. He looked at me, and in his eyes was something I had not seen for years. Clarity. Ashley, he said with a dull voice, I think you should go. What? That you leave. Get out of this house. Now, are you kicking me out? Michael, after everything we have been through together, after everything you made me do, he corrected. His voice became firmer. My mom is right. I was a coward. I let you manipulate me. I let you poison my mind against the only person who has always loved me unconditionally. And because of that, he broke. Because of that, I lost my mother. He looked at me with pleading eyes. Mom, I know I have no right to ask you for anything. I know what I did is unforgivable. But please, give me the chance to show you that I can change, that I can be the son you deserve to have. I felt something stir in my chest, that maternal instinct that never dies, no matter how much they hurt you, but it was not time to give in, not yet. Michael, I said firmly but without cruelty, I gave you life, I gave you love, I gave you opportunities, and you chose to betray me, not once, but for months. You planned my destruction. I know, then understand this. I do not recognize you as my son, not until you prove, with real and sustained actions over time, that you have changed. I do not want pretty words. I do not want empty apologies. I want to see that you are capable of being a man of honor, like your father was. Michael sobbed. He covered his face with his hands. Ashley, seeing that she had lost everything, took her bag. You are a witch. She spat with venom. A bitter old woman who destroyed her own son's happiness. I hope you live alone and miserable for the rest of your life. I already lived miserable, I replied calmly. The last months you were in my house. Now I am going to live in peace. Ashley left, slamming the door. Michael remained there, sitting, broken. You have 1 week to get your things out of this house, I told him. After that, I will change the locks. And Michael looked at me with red eyes. I am going to give you a chance. Just one. In 6 months. If you have paid what you owe me. If you have divorced that woman, and if you have shown that you are trying to be a better person. We can talk, but it will be on my terms. Understood? Understood. Do not thank me yet. Now go. I need to be alone." He got up with difficulty and walked to the door. Before leaving, he turned one last time. "I love you, Mom. I have always loved you. I just forgot it for a moment." I did not answer. I just closed the door behind him. When the sound of his footsteps faded, my legs finally gave way. Rose held me before I fell. Uncle Jack helped me sit down. Betty appeared from the kitchen with a glass of water, and there, surrounded by the people who really loved me, I cried. But they were not tears of defeat. They were tears of liberation. The following days were strange. The house was silent, but it was a different silence. It was not the heavy silence of forced loneliness. It was the silence of peace. Michael complied. In 4 days, he came with a moving truck and took out all his things, all those remaining from his childhood, all those Ashley had left. I was not there when he came. I had given the key to Rose to supervise. I did not have the strength to see him yet. Rose told me that he had cried upon seeing the wooden clock hanging on the living room wall, the one Ashley had called ugly. That clock David gave me with so much love. I asked him if he wanted to take something as a souvenir. Rose told me that night while we drank tea in my kitchen. He said he did not deserve to take anything, that he had lost everything through his own fault. I did not know what to feel. There was still pain, much pain, but there was also something else, determination to move forward. On the 5th day, Brenda returned the truck. She did not come personally. Of course, she sent Robert with a driver. The truck was impeccable, freshly washed, with a full tank. The keys came in an envelope along with all the original papers and a letter. It was not from Brenda. It was from Robert. "Dear Emily, I apologize for not having the courage to stop this sooner. For years, I have let my wife make all the decisions, and that included allowing Ashley to grow up believing she could manipulate and use people. I am deeply ashamed of what they tried to do to you. You do not deserve any of this. I hope one day you can forgive, although I understand if you cannot. With respect, Robert." I folded the letter and put it away. I did not throw it away. Maybe one day I could forgive Robert, but that day was still far away. 2 weeks later, I received a bank transfer, $12,000 exact, from Michael's account, the full loan plus interest. I stared at my phone screen for a long time. He had sold something. Surely. Maybe his car. Maybe he had borrowed. I do not know. But he had paid. It was the first step. Small, but real. 1 month after the confrontation, I received a summons. Ashley had tried to sue me for moral damages and defamation. My heart raced when I saw the document, but Attorney Roger just laughed when I showed him. "Leave it to me, with all the evidence we have. This case is not going to last even 2 hearings. It is a desperate tactic." He was right. The lawsuit was dismissed at the first hearing. The judge warned Ashley that if she filed frivolous lawsuits again, she would be the one sanctioned. But the news that really impacted me came 3 months later. Rose arrived one afternoon with a strange expression on her face. "Emily, I need to tell you something about Michael." My heart stopped. "Is he okay?" "He is fine, but he got divorced. Ashley signed the papers last week, and there is more." Rose took out her phone and showed me a photograph. He sold the apartment where they lived. He moved to a smaller place, cheaper, and resigned from his company. Resigned? Yes. He told me he could not continue working with his partners knowing he had used your money fraudulently. He said he needed to start from scratch. Now he works as a freelance developer from home. He earns less, but says he sleeps better. I felt something in my chest. It was not forgiveness yet, but maybe it was the beginning of something similar. Has he asked about me? Every week, but he does not dare to look for you. He says he will respect the time you need. The 6 months I had given him were fulfilled on a Tuesday in February. It was cold that morning. One of those rare cold days that force you to take the sweater from the bottom of the closet. I was watering the hydrangeas in the garden when I heard a knock on the door. My heart knew before my mind processed it. I opened the door. There was Michael. But not the Michael who had lived in my house months ago. This one was different. Thinner, with deep circles under his eyes, but with something in his eyes I had not seen for years. Humility. He brought flowers, a simple bouquet of white daisies, my favorites. "Hi, Mom." I did not answer immediately. I just looked at him. "I know you said 6 months," he continued with a trembling voice. "They were fulfilled yesterday. I did not come before because I wanted to respect your time, but I need you to know something." He took an envelope out of his jacket. He extended it to me with hands that trembled slightly. "What is this?" "Open it." I did. Inside was a handwritten letter, several pages. I recognized his handwriting immediately. Mom. During these 6 months, I have tried to understand how I came to become the person I was, how I allowed love to turn into betrayal. I have been going to therapy, twice a week, and I have learned things about myself that I did not want to see. I kept reading, page after page. Michael described his process, how he had realized that Ashley manipulated him from the beginning, but also how he had allowed that manipulation because it was easier than facing his own insecurities, how he had used my unconditional love as a mattress that cushioned all his falls. No matter how much he hurt me in the process, the letter ended with a promise. I do not ask you to forgive me today, nor tomorrow, nor next month. I only ask you to allow me to show you, with real and sustained actions, that I can be the son I always should have been, the son Dad would have wanted me to be. I love you, Mom, and I will spend the rest of my life trying to deserve you. I finished reading with tears running down my cheeks. I folded the letter carefully and put it back in the envelope. Michael looked at me with eyes full of hope and terror. Mom, I hugged him. I had not planned it. I had not thought about it. But my body reacted before my mind. My arms surrounded him and squeezed him tight, like when he was a child and had nightmares. Michael collapsed. He sobbed against my shoulder like he had not done since he was a teenager. I am so sorry. Mom, so much. I failed you. I failed Dad. I failed myself. I know, I whispered, and you broke my heart. I know, but you are my son, and a part of me is always going to love you, no matter what. We stayed like that, hugging in the doorway, for a long time. The neighbors probably saw us. I did not care. When we finally separated, I wiped his tears with my thumb, like I did when he was little. This does not mean everything is okay, I said firmly. There is still much to heal, much trust to rebuild. I know, but you can start by coming for coffee on Sunday, if you want. His eyes lit up. Really? Really? But, Michael, I looked him in the eye. If you betray my trust again, if you allow someone to manipulate you again to hurt me, there will be no third chance. Do you understand? I understand, and I promise it will never happen again. I nodded. I had no certainty that it was true, but I had hope, and sometimes hope is enough to start. Michael left with a small smile, but genuine. I stayed at the door, watching him walk away, feeling something I had not felt in months. Peace. The Sundays started again, timidly at first. Michael arrived punctual, with pastries from the neighborhood bakery. We sat in the kitchen to drink coffee and talk, about small things at first, the weather, the news, his work. Little by little, the conversations became deeper. He told me about his therapy, about what he was learning, about how it felt to live alone, without depending on anyone, without manipulating or being manipulated. I told him about the Women with Dignity Foundation, how Rose and I had started receiving other women in similar situations. We gave them free legal advice, emotional support, a safe space where they could tell their stories without being judged. I am proud of you. Mom, he told me one Sunday, you turned something horrible into something beautiful. I learned that pain can be fuel. I replied, you can let it destroy you or you can use it to build something better. 6 months after that first Sunday meeting, Michael arrived with a proposal. Mom, I want to do something for the foundation. I want to create a free website where other women can find resources, legal information, testimonies, links to shelters and lawyers. I can do it, without charging anything, as my way of giving back some of the damage I caused. I looked at my son, this man who had fallen so low and was fighting so hard to get up. It seems perfect to me, and so it was. Michael worked for 3 months on that website. He named it Hope Reborn. He said it was in my honor. I cried when he showed it to me finished. It was beautiful, professional, full of useful information, and on the homepage, there was a phrase he wrote himself. It is never too late to recover your dignity. It is never too late to say, enough, and never. You are never alone.